This is not Cannon Fodder. This is Schizos Anonymous, episode 1. A new show that myself and Capitalisimo and maybe a few other people have thought about doing for a while, where we read and talk about dissident literature, like real dissident literature, not the stuff that I make.
Not the euphemistically dissident literature.
but some really off the wall stuff. We're going to be reading books, the schizo books, the books that you can't cover on a fiction podcast, even though they might be less steeped in reality than something like classic literature.
Right.
With me tonight and hopefully going forward is Cap. Cap, how we doing?
We are doing great. I am getting to express my schizo history bone that I so rarely get to stretch. The mixed metaphor there, but
so we recorded an episode of my show Cannon Fodder on Don DeLillo's book Libra, which is about the shooting of JFK and mostly the life of Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, when Wendy Painting went out to start writing about this, or start doing the research for this book, she named her book Aberration in the Heartland of the Real, which is based on a DeLillo quote from that book. And all throughout the book, she actually, she has little winks and nods to DeLillo or just straight up quotations from Libra throughout.
Yeah, she's clearly a factotum, like a real Renaissance woman in terms of her the how much and how deeply she reads various things. This book is a interesting in that it's willing to literally consider everything, including explicitly fictional accounts. And I think that like that sort of literary bent is what makes this a really a fascinating history. Like, this book has a cult following.
This book is a work of art.
For sure.
It's not just a history of one man, an infamous man in American history. And it's not, cut and dry report, let's say, of the events that happened at Oklahoma City. No, this is a love letter is weird to use, but it almost is. It is definitely a labor of love. It's artwork. It really is. I love the cover. I love just all the work that she put into the book. And as we'll see, hopefully you, dear audience, will come to appreciate this as much as we do.
It kind of just to gush a little more, it does kind of come across as like trying to look at a 4-dimensional object in 3 dimensions. Like that's how many different directions she takes to try to understand the OKC bombing, basically, and Timothy McVeigh more broadly. We love our journalists, especially in the spheres that you and I run in, and hopefully the audience runs in. Wendy Painting is an actual journalist. She does not come in with any preconceived notion. Well, she does come in with preconceived notions, but she does not let any sort of prejudices color her investigation, and it goes in dimensions and directions that she could not have possibly seen coming. But instead of massaging details or making a narrative, she lets the narrative sort of go by the facts that she finds. And maybe she doesn't. Maybe there's things that she didn't, or that she's hiding, or didn't want to reveal, or was threatened into not revealing. I doubt it, because this is a pretty hefty book. It is a real doorstopper. Aberration in the Heartland of the Real clocks in at the primary book is 545 pages with an additional 250 pages of footnotes. So it's a infinite jest scale.
Now, I will say this: as much as I love the contents of the book, and this is not no denigration to Wendy at all. Trine Day, man, they haven't figured out how to put together a big book.
It is yeah. If what you are referring to is that the card stock on the cover is far too light for a book of this
it's
ponderous
a girthy
girth.
book.
Yeah, this ponderous girth. I struggle to not crease the spines, and this one is well. This is actually I'm holding my second copy of this book.
You're doing curls with it, right?
Yeah, I'm currently holding the second copy that I've owned of this book because the first one literally fell apart on me. Like the spine sort of like tore in a way that I have never experienced before. But yeah, it's I'm a big physical media fan, and I'm a big physical media enjoyer. I won't denigrate myself with the wrong signal there, but yeah, the book is not
physical media appreciators. That's the top tier.
It's not put together great, unfortunately.
No, and I love Trine Day as a publisher. They put out some really interesting stuff that the mainstream is just never going to touch.
For sure.
So this is not to shit on them, but hopefully if somebody from Trine Day ever sees this, we just want better quality books out there.
Put out a prestige copy. Do
it. A noticing tier edition.
Not that good. No,
I'd buy it. Like bound in Timothy McVeigh's flesh.
I mean, okay. Well, I mean, if we're getting like actual, first class relics of Timothy McVeigh in the binding, then of course, I'd pay $400 for that.
Whom we do not support, by the way.
Well, I mean, I feel a certain amount of sympathy for him,
right?
But this book,
but he's a very bad man. We disavow.
He did a terrorism, folks.
If he indeed did it,
yes.
To quote O.J. Simpson,
I think it's incontrovertible that he played a part in it.
Yeah.
So as to what degree that was, probably to reveal my my biases, I'm most sympathetic to the idea that it was the plot was cooked up and got out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my most that is my the view that I'm most sympathetic towards.
Well, I mean, and Libra is one of your favorite books, so that tracks.
Well, yeah,
and that's one of the things that we'll probably pick up on, because I read this before I read Libra, so I was like, oh, she's quoting a novel. I haven't read that. That's pretty quirky. But having now read Libra and now coming back to Aberration in the Heartland of the Real, I can say I see why she picked Libra of all books, because I
see what you did there. Yeah.
It's very much this. I named the title of the episode that we did a Confederacy of Gunsels.
Okay,
and that's very similar to what's going on here. Whereas these guys, they really do lose control of what is supposed to be, a standard operating, sort of thing.
A standard thing that the feds cook up so that they can foil it and then take credit. Like, for example, the quote unquote kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer, right? Which has been acknowledged in U.S. court as a plot by the FBI, and they
or when Or when McDonald's gets rid of the McRib.
Yes.
And then suddenly
clearly.
it pops up again.
So where did they come from? What were you doing with them in the meantime? Where's the McRib warehouse? Where's the undisclosed McRib facility? So
Timothy McVeigh was guarding it in Buffalo, New York.
That's that. Yeah, you know what? It's naturally cold in Buffalo, so they save money on refrigeration. I should have seen that. They're excellent at logistics.
So I think today we're gonna read a bit of the foreword. I don't know how far we'll get in the time that we have, but we'll give it a shot, and I'll put the episode out, and hopefully people like it, because this is definitely this is like right in my wheelhouse of things that are too schizophrenic for me to bring up at Thanksgiving that I obsess about for way too long.
Well, maybe you just need to upgrade your family. Need to upgrade your get a few more schizos in there.
I tell my family I was sheep dipped. All right, so this is the cover. Great cover. My wife hates it, and she hated when I was reading the book. She's like, "Get that out of the bedroom. I don't want to look at that."
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, the cover is just scary.
No, she well, like she doesn't like anything with devil horns or anything demonic, stuff like that.
Okay. I mean, I guess I don't. I guess that makes sense. That's kind of adorable, actually.
Yeah, no, it's I'm not complaining. It's
right.
I'm like, oh, hon.
Oh, honey.
All right, so we're gonna get past the acknowledgments, and who's that strapping young lad?
I don't know. He looks an awful lot like your profile pic.
Hey.
Yes.
All right, so I figure I'm going to let you do the reading. You have a much better reading voice, and I tend to stumble on my words when I try and read out loud because my teachers didn't give me enough attention growing up.
All right. Well, I guess we'll just
let's get into it.
We'll include the Don DeLillo quote as well, though we've already discussed it. Sometimes he looked around him, horrified by the weight of it all. The career of paper. He sits in the data spew of hundreds of lives. There's no end in sight. Let's call it a meeting to analyze the blur. Let's devote our lives to understand this moment, separating the elements of each crowded second. We will build our theories that gleam like jade idols, intriguing systems of assumption. We will follow the bullet trajectories backwards to the lives that occupy the shadows, actual men. There is much here, in the aberration in the heartland of the real. Don DeLillo, Libra, 1988.
Which you should definitely go check out, folks, even though DeLillo is not the top tier of his generation of writers.
Oh my God.
I had to get that in.
Clearly towards the top, even if he's not the GOAT. All right. On April 19, 1995, at 9:02 a.m., a truck bomb exploded in front of the Murrah Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City, killing 168 people, including 19 children. 2 days later, authorities named 27-year-old Timothy McVeigh as the prime suspect in the most deadly attack on American soil. Thereafter, his visage, quickly dubbed the Face of Terror, inundated the media, thus becoming seared into the archives of public memory.
Interesting that he is the face of terror so quickly, given the given what happens a few years later, but then also you don't see a lot of Midwestern white dudes committing acts of terror.
Yeah. I mean, and like, to be clear, in the 90s, there was a huge fear of right-wing terrorism.
Right. Black Pill does a really good series on that. I don't know if you ever checked it out. His PatCon series.
No. Yeah. Tell me about it.
Oh yeah, so there was this government program, and PatCon, it is brought up in the book. But he does a series on this this January 6th documentary that was Oh, it was narrated by the guy who played Inigo Montoya. What's his
Mandy
name?
Patinkin?
Yeah. He's the narrator of it. And Black Pill just goes through all these different federal operations from Ruby Ridge to
Waco.
Waco, yes, to Timothy McVeigh, and so on and so forth. And he covers a lot of information that I think he probably lifted from the book, this book particularly, because he does cover a lot of the same ground as far as who was Timothy McVeigh.
Yeah.
What was he doing at Waco? Was he a federal informant? Was he working for the U.S. military when this all happened?
Certainly found his way around in a way.
Yeah, he's like the Forrest Gump of the 90s militia movement.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, and then of course a big thing happened 6 years later that kind of changed all that. But the people who were in charge in the bureaucracies and who remember the 90s like that, I don't know if there's a name for that group of people who are the permanent bureaucrats. I don't know if we can think of some sort of name.
It's like the depth sovereign.
Yeah. Some kind of submerged managers. We'll figure it out.
We'll get the branding guys on that. There's got to be something.
All of them remember the 90s right wing terror, and the real terror obviously that happened here, but also the fictional kind that they were obsessed with and caused at Ruby Ridge and Waco. All right. In the immediate hours, weeks, and months after the explosion, a number of rapidly formed and highly conflicting narratives about both the bombing and bomber appeared and spread. The stories developed over time and continue to circulate today. Their construction involves a complex and dynamic process of collaboration and competition between the multiple individuals and institutions with various motives, agendas, and intents, stated or implied, all of whom assert different facts based on different evaluative criteria. Authors of the stories include journalists, victims and survivors, eyewitnesses, the FBI, federal prosecutors, politicians, experts, analysts, pundits, defense attorneys, and, notably, McVeigh himself. Within each narrative, the material facts and chronology of events, as well as the roles and identities of the villains, differ, as do the acts attributed to them and their purported motives. One of the most interesting things about this whole event is that McVeigh didn't die in the act, right? So he was able to exert a certain amount of influence on the narrative that formed afterwards, to a greater or lesser degree of success. But the fact that he was a participant at all is not really something that has happened since.
Right. We never find the guys who do this alive. Typically, we'll find their passports just in the middle of the street,
unburned
somehow,
of
course, right?
In fire that melted steel beams.
Exactly.
But the passport somehow miraculously survived. They should build the planes out of passport material.
They should build everything out of passport.
They should. Today, Timothy McVeigh, an American terrorist, all-American monster, and for a time, the most hated man in America, continues to personify a wide range of prototypical Cold War and post-Cold War identities. A self-styled Rambo, survivalist, militia type, gun nut, lone nut, disgruntled soldier, rogue avenger, boy next door gone bad, and quintessential conspiracy theorist turned rabid, homegrown lone wolf domestic terrorist. In McVeigh's face of terror is also reflected the ghost of Lee Harvey Oswald, and like Oswald, John Wilkes Booth, Sirhan Sirhan, and a number of other American lone gunmen before and after McVeigh, all of whom inspired multiple competing, highly conflicting, and continually evolving narratives and debates about just how alone these wolves really were.
You know who he reminds me of? Like who he kind of looks like?
The Man in the Mirror.
Oof. No. Stop it. I would never do such a thing, sir. No, Bart Simpson, actually, especially for the time, and especially because he was in Desert Storm. I just remember, I remember that there was like this sort of, not a pinup, but like this drawing of Bart Simpson in fatigues, and he's like, "Yeah, I was in Kuwait, man. That shit sucked," or something like that. And I don't know. That's the vibe I kind of get from McVeigh, is like a grown up, more twisted Bart Simpson. Obviously not on the same scale. He's not cutting off the heads of statues. He's blowing up federal buildings, which again disavow. But
disavow, sure. The well, there was, if you go back a page, I would like to point. I forgot to point this out. The shirt he's wearing. Speaking of like additional wrinkles in the message, the shirt he was arrested wearing is a portrait of Lee Harvey Oswald with "Sic Semper Tyrannis" written underneath it. So,
oof.
yeah, Sic Semper Tyrannis
let me
being
go back to that.
Yeah, being what
right,
John Wilkes Booth said, not what Lee Harvey Oswald said.
Yeah, you can kind of make it out. I'm sure there are better shots out there on the wider internet.
Yeah,
of that T-shirt.
It's got that Oswald Norwood 3. Why'd he do it? It was the hairline.
It's always the hairline. Sirhan didn't have a hair on his head.
Was he bald? I actually have no idea.
I've never seen the man.
John Hinkley's still got a full head of hair. Old man.
That's because
he wasn't
MK Ultra. He was just a crazy person.
That's true. Jodie Foster didn't even give that guy a HJ.
Imagine she visits him in prison.
It's like,
and she's just like, Dr. Lecter.
I can smell you. He's the guy in the cell next door who's got the insane aim. God.
Anyway.
All right. Okay. Many of the narratives that appeared after McVeigh's arrest claim to tell the real and sometimes suppressed story of the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing. All of these stories were and continue to be told publicly by diverse groups and subcultures within multiple genres: fictional, historical, biographical, academic, and journalistic, of which this book is most, and are transmitted through many media: printed, digital, televised, and cinematic. Various readers and commentators have labeled these narratives alternately a fantastical, fictional, or accurate historical accounts, the stuff of conspiracy theories, cautionary tales, or dangerous ideological expressions of belief, or radically cynical disbelief. McVeigh remains central within all such stories, yet appears very different depending on the versions told. He may appear as one of several unnamed accomplices, a witting or unwitting patsy steeped in a world of shadows and spies, cross-dressing neo-Nazis, and doppelganger decoys.
We are in for a trip.
We are in for a trip, ladies and gentlemen. A modern-day Manchurian candidate, victim of nightmarish schemes and inhumane experiments hatched by faceless conspirators, or some combination thereof. Recurring elements in the plots of these stories include black helicopters, mysterious clandestine black ops, mad scientists, brainwashing, implanted tracking, and mind control biotechnologies, faked executions, and, from time to time, UFOs.
That's the line that got me.
It's like, I'm a read this.
Where is Art Bell when you need him?
God, when we got to do the Art Bell LM.
Ham can do it because he has that voice AI thing.
Well, you gotta figure out how to
twist the screws. Yeah,
you gotta make it like actually figure out the dialogue too. You just got to be able to call into Art Bell LM and be like, Art, got a story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny too. I keep reading books about like the government or like special ops and stuff like that, and they always go off in Black Hawk helicopters, and then they call people who happen to be on the ground who see these things in the air conspiracy theorists. Like the black helicopters thing has always been the ones like, really, that's what you're calling somebody crazy for? Like, I see 5 black helicopters every single day.
Yeah. Well, the reason why the black helicopters have really not been a thing in the 21st century. It was
We got drones now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a big that was a big conspiracy theory in the scare quotes around conspiracy theory, but like that the story of black helicopters had currency in the 90s, and the way that they were described is not really behaving as helicopters. It's like they float in the sky and like the blade is clearly not moving, and then it just like flies off in a way that a helicopter can't move or something like
I
that.
see.
So like they move like UFOs, or like they make zero sound, or some other weird like a lot of the black helicopter stuff tended to veer into these are like holograms or cloaked UFOs or something like that.
Right.
That is what that was.
Got it.
Wasn't just like there are black helicopters.
I see.
Because,
okay. See,
yeah.
I was born in the 90s, so this is all okay. That makes a lot more sense. I'm usually pretty steeped in this stuff, but that was one that I guess kind of evaded my grasp.
I was reading Fortean Times in the neighborhood Barnes and Noble at age 12.
Did you buy it? Because I don't think they have that there anymore.
Yeah, I guess I probably didn't buy it enough. Actually, I did end up getting a subscription to Fortean Times for like 5 years.
Maybe we can find a few on like archive, Internet Archive, and we can do an episode on them too.
Maybe I can find them in a moldy box in my mom's basement. I'll see. I'll give
in
her
the back seat of your Nissan Stanza.
I'll give her. Doug's gonna kill me. Never finished paying him for my subscription to Fortean Times.
Perfect.
All right. Although easily dismissed as fantastical paranoid tales, the mere existence of these narratives raises questions about and poses radical disruptions to historical and current medical, psychological, bioethical, and terrorism discourses. These stories act as causes and solutions to physical and psychological terror, many products of a covert sphere, knowledge of which may help to distinguish between the signified and the signifier, symbols of representation and that which is represented, the map and the territory, fact and fantasy, reality and illusion. The acceptance of one version over another depends upon pre-existing beliefs about what is logical, plausible, implausible, palatable, and simply unimaginable.
What's that line in the JFK film? It's like it's a riddle wrapped in an enigma.
Yeah, with a crisp candy shell drizzled in the sauce of mystery.
Now I'm hungry.
Yes. Wrapped in a blueberry crepe. The work differs from previous treatments for a number of reasons. To begin with, it identifies and compares commonly told stories about McVeigh and the bombing, stories that more often than not rely upon recycled sources and focus exclusively on the bombing while providing only a cursory glance at McVeigh himself. This book tests all existing stories against a wealth of newly introduced biographical information gained through personal interviews and archival collections, rendering the majority of the previous depictions overly simplistic, deterministic, and factually dubious or devoid of context. When these stories are compared and new information introduced, a very different picture of Generation X's own American terrorist is revealed. That is very true. This is actually all things considered. There is information in this book that was presented to the public for the first time.
Yeah. And I think she's working on a sequel actually with a bunch of uncovered documents.
Oh, even more interesting.
It was supposed to come out in 2022, I think.
Someone's got to check in on.
I mean, she's on Twitter
on
a bunch.
Painting. I followed her today.
Oh yeah, I followed her for a while.
Secondly, this book differs from its predecessors by demonstrating how Timothy McVeigh himself told not only the most commonly known and officially sanctioned version, the Lone Wolf story, but before and after his arrest, privately told versions of all competing stories that would come to circulate. Finally, the Oklahoma City bombing is continuously invoked to understand other violent acts, and McVeigh as a primary figure to compare the lives, motives, and actions of those who commit them, a circumstance necessitating a more complete understanding of both McVeigh and the bombing, a gap I hope this book helps to fill. Yeah. So, on that last point, basically this preface is kind of a is going to go over the most publicly acknowledged parts of the bombing and the aftermath. Then when we actually get into chapter 1, and this is a very long preface, this is a 60-page preface, but when we get into the actual first chapter, it that opens with a catalog of other like famous madmen, I guess, for lack of a better category, because
we're introduced to Uncle Ted. We're introduced to
I mean, it goes all the way to like Adam Lanza and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and it's so. This is actually the event, maybe because when does Columbine happen? After, right?
The Columbine happened in 97, I think.
So this is the event that political terrorism goes from assassination to more stochastic sort of mass casualty events. Right, like the Weather Underground and a bunch of other leftists in the 60s and 70s had their spree, but it didn't get the attention that this or Columbine or the later happenings had.
Right, and well, and it also, we had a very different media landscape by that time, of course. Columbine was 99, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. So I lived through both of these things, but for some reason I always imagined Columbine happening like more than 2.5 years before 9/11. Like I thought of it happening like 5 years before it, but all right. Next section: method and approach. After surveying the majority of publicly available literature about the bombing and McVeigh, I began locating, interviewing, and corresponding with the victims' family members, survivors, witnesses, attorneys, private investigators, journalists, McVeigh's co-workers, friends, neighbors, and underworld associates, including bank robbers, neo-Nazis, militia leaders, and many others. I found these individuals in among other places, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and New York. Simultaneously, I sought out and obtained hard-to-find documents relating to the case, many that are publicly introduced within this book for the first time. Newly introduced oral and archival sources include, but are not limited to, materials found within the Stephen Jones collection located at the University of Texas, Stephen Jones being McVeigh's attorney.
The first one, right?
The first one. And the American Terrorist Collection located at St. Bonaventure University. After Timothy McVeigh's sentencing in 1997, and at McVeigh's request, his lead attorney, Stephen Jones, I guess I didn't need to say that, was removed from his team of lawyers. In 1998, Jones published his account of the case, Others Unknown, and donated the mountains of material generated by the defense team to the Dolph Briscoe Center for American History at the University of Texas, Austin. The Jones collection includes, but is not limited to, internal defense team memorandum, meeting notes, investigatory reports, interviews with McVeigh's friends, family, co-workers, and outsiders, personal letters written by and to McVeigh, reports filed by defense team mental health and other experts, courtroom exhibits, audio tape, and transcripts of conversations with McVeigh, witnesses, journalists, and others, FBI investigatory documents called 302s and inserts, investigatory documents from other law enforcement and intelligence agencies, defense-generated legal briefs, filings and correspondences, newspaper clippings, and McVeigh's military and medical records. To date, I am the only researcher to have gone through the entire publicly available portion of the collection, an endeavor that took 4 years.
Now, I will give the the cathedral, as Moldbug would put it, some credit here. They do keep impeccable records.
They sure do. Unless they have to memory hole it, they sure do.
But even still, like this stuff, you would think would be the first thing to go, right? But the fact that they keep it, and not widely available for public consumption, but at least somewhat available.
Right. Yeah.
It's not locked. Like there's shit from the Soviet Union from like the 40s and the 30s that we're only now getting access to, and then even it's only really guys that are academics like Sean McMeekin who's getting stuff like this.
Well, and there's things from the JFK
oh yeah, that stuff's still locked up.
That's still locked up. Yeah. Old Donnie said he was gonna declassify that in his first term, and he didn't do it for some reason.
They showed him another picture of from a different angle.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, we can't release this.
He had his own little. Well, now that he had his own little Dealey Plaza moment.
Maybe he's gonna do it.
Maybe he's like, you know what, fuck it.
Maybe he's gonna do it. Yeah, they'll finally show the photo of JFK shooting himself. All right, where was I? All right. In addition, during the summer of 2012, I reviewed and transcribed the entire American Terrorist collection located at St. Bonaventure University, consisting of hundreds of letters written by McVeigh to his biographers after his conviction until the time of his execution, as well as transcripts excuse me, of hundreds
very professional podcast.
Hours. You could cut that out. You won't.
Nah,
you could.
I won't.
Written by McVeigh to his biographers after his conviction until the time of his execution, as well as transcripts of hundreds of hours of their interviews with them. The American Terrorist collection picks up where the Jones collection leaves off. The archival and oral sources introduced in this book contribute a wealth of contextual detail and information that aids in a closer comparative analysis of existing texts. The data presented operates on a number of levels relevant to several sociocultural and political arenas and aggressively intercedes in debates about the factual details of McVeigh's life and the bombing. Some of the documents found in the Jones collection, including FBI investigatory documents and McVeigh's medical records, have also been obtained through my own FOIA requests. Additionally, other individuals, including Salt Lake City attorney Jesse Trentadue and Peter Langen, have generously provided duplicate versions of documents found in the Jones collection, as well as other investigatory documents not found there. I don't know if she physically typed out all of these letters or something like that, or made copies or something.
She didn't have Chat GPT, so she must have.
Oh my God. Nightmare. Absolute nightmare job.
Chat GPT, can you write a letter going out to a lawyer about the Oklahoma City bombing? No, I cannot do that.
From the perspective of Timothy McVeigh. Sorry, as a large language model, I'm only capable of telling you the correct proportion of nitrogen and fertilizer to let's see.
I wonder what Ryder's stock was like right after.
Oh my God.
It just took a dump.
I don't know. I haven't seen a Ryder truck in years, actually. I don't know. Maybe I just don't live.
The guys over at U-Haul are like all high-fiving, like
the guys at U-Haul were like, "Oh man, we really dodged it on that one, didn't we? Oh, this could have been bad."
The guys at Hertz are like, "Well, we had OJ as our spokesperson, but at least we didn't blow up a building like some people."
Like some people, Ryder. All right. I use these sources to show how Timothy McVeigh authored all the competing stories about himself, not only those of the lone wolf variety. From these, as well as publicly available sources, I constructed a multi-sourced timeline of McVeigh's life and critical moments leading up to the bombing. The use of this timeline helped me to identify when sources contradicted each other. While certain details are repeated throughout this book, each time they appear within a new context and in relation to previously unknown details, in a way that, with each progressive retelling, requires a new interpretation of those details and the alternate conflicting narratives discussed. Each story variation examined as told by McVeigh and others holds strikingly different implications about the nature of authority, reality, truth, control of the narrative, and the potential consequences of labeling certain ideas and identities as threatening, harmful, dangerous, and even unthinkable. Compared against each other and to newer information introduced in this book, these stories illustrate the shifting nature of history itself and the ways that the Oklahoma City bombing acts as an example of how institutional secrecy can subjugate and silence information and knowledge and relegate it to the outskirts of officially sanctioned regimes of truth.
And I think that's the thing that I appreciate about this book the most, because we have seen, especially recently, the real-time memory holding of important events in this country. Who's talking about, besides guys in our sphere, who's talking about the attempted assassination of the former president of the United States? In fact, I would hazard a guess that like a third of the left, like 1/3 of a typical Kamala voter, thinks that he wasn't actually hit, that he was hit with shrapnel from the teleprompter, that
Right.
he was never in really any danger at all. I'm sure there's a not insignificant percentage that still think that Trump set himself up to play the hero.
That just found he just found the world's greatest sniper.
Right. Well, because they don't know how guns work.
You could like find a guy just graze me.
Yeah, just graze me.
I'll be moving around a lot too, so like, just make sure.
They all think that he's shore leave. Oh
God. Boom, yummy. All right. Well, so
yeah, okay.
Do we want to do the timeline?
I mean, we can, I'll put the timeline up, and then we can do kind of the greatest hits.
Well, you got to read the whole thing to know where the greatest hits are.
Fair. All right. If you're listening, feel free to pause right now and read through all this stuff. And I'm going to switch pages now. All right. Now I'll give you a second to do that. So pause. All right. If you didn't do that, go back and do that. If not, we're moving on.
Yep.
I think we can do that.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. Now here is the
court history. The court history title.
Court history. Exactly. So
this is the narrative that everybody came to right away. One could almost say it was fed to them. I wouldn't say that, but one could.
Fed, is that short for something? Or is it merely the past tense?
Sneed. It was sned.
It was sned to them. Yes. All right. The usual suspects. Within an hour of the explosion, news crews from every major outlet descended on downtown Oklahoma City. An immediate and constant deluge of around-the-clock live reports and repetitive airing of graphically gruesome images of the bombing's devastation and carnage came to signify the worst and most deadly attack of terrorism on American soil so far, forever embedding both the bombing and its representation into public memory. The bombing, quickly characterized as an attack on America's heartland, necessitated the creation of a nationally shared narrative to explain both the event itself and the threat it represented. Initial details used to create the earliest of these stories came from the mass reporting of sensationalized or sometimes wholly erroneous speculation, rumor, and commentary given by counterterrorism and security experts and pundits, as well as contradictory statements issued by government and law enforcement officials. The coverage ultimately triggered not a unified narrative, but several divergent ones. Immediately after the blast, President Bill Clinton assured the country, "Let there be no room for doubt. We will find the people who did this. When we do, justice will be swift, certain, and severe. These people are killers and must be treated as killers." Real missed opportunity, now that I've said it, to not have tried to do that in Bill Clinton's voice. But
yeah, I mean, you could try again and I can edit it in.
It's fine. Within hours, eyewitnesses in Oklahoma City gave statements to authorities, some to authorities. Some said they observed 2 and sometimes 3 males with swarthy, dark complexions sitting in a brown Chevy pickup truck near the Murrah Building just prior to the explosion, who then quickly left the scene afterwards.
Swarthoids are seething.
Swarthoids are seething. I'm over here seething.
Oh, really?
The witnesses. Well, it
Over
just means
here, guys.
hairy. It just means hairy. The witnesses described the men as appearing alternately Middle Eastern, Arab, Hispanic, or Native American. See, that's a little weird because Native Americans not known for their facial hair. Just saying. Some said they saw a white male in the driver's seat of a yellow Ryder moving truck and a person sitting in the passenger seat, parked directly in front of the Murrah, who, moments before the blast, exited the vehicle and walked off in a separate direction from the driver of the Ryder, who, alone or in some versions with others, sped away in a yellow 4-door car. Government spokespeople, counterterrorism, and security experts and pundits elaborated on and attempted to make sense of the information for the public. And many formulated theories about Arab jihadist perpetrators. In the days to follow, the FBI detained, questioned, and released several men of Arab descent. Throughout the country, Middle Easterners became the target of harassment, hate crimes, and virulent rhetorical attacks in the media. On the afternoon of April 19th, the OKC Police Department, OKCPD, issued an all-points bulletin for 2 suspects in a brown truck. Although the OKCPD retracted the APB a few days later, it quickly became the source of ongoing confusion and speculation. Don Browning, a retired OKCPD canine unit officer and first responder, recalled his experience of the confusing and rapidly shifting details surrounding the APB. By the evening of April 19th, I started getting really concerned. OKCPD was repeatedly broadcasting an all-points bulletin for the 5-state area, and there were 3 vehicles: a brown pickup truck, a blue Chevy Cavalier, and another car, maybe an Oldsmobile or Buick. They were trying to keep state and region-wide law enforcement aware of the suspects and the vehicles. That evening, as we were working in the building or waiting outside of it to work again, they were still putting out a description of Persian males. They kept telling us they still had those vehicles under surveillance and said that one headed south towards Dallas and the other 2 in different directions. They had every law enforcement officer in the surrounding area and states looking for 3 vehicles, and they let us continue to believe that. The guys with the FBI raid jackets had become the kingpins on the scene. Everyone was begging them for information. The next afternoon, I approached one of the agents in charge and just happened to ask him, "Hey, what's the deal with the cars?" And the FBI man says, "What cars?" And I said, "The pickup and the other 2 cars." And he says, "Disinformation." I said, "What?" And he said it again, "Disinformation." "What are you talking about?" I asked. He says, "We can't tell the media everything we know about this." I said, "Okay, well, but you're telling law enforcement." He said again, "Disinformation," and then just walked away. Now they deny broadcasting those descriptions, but I do have a copy of the teletype that was issued. Years later, I asked various other law enforcement officers about it, and they also remembered the APBs being issued.
It's kind of wholesome that they buy American. You never see a Toyota. You never see a Toyota driving away from one of these scenes.
That's true. The Toyotas are for the battlefield. You gotta mount a former Soviet anti-air gun in the back of those.
What I would do for a Toyota Hilux.
Oh my God. I would repeal cafe standards day one in office. All right.
Barron, get on it.
Barron, do it.
We know you listen.
Father, you should listen. Father, you should read The Double Dealer. Father, you should listen to these sidebar boys from Tookie's Mag. Yes, that's a great idea, Barron. Thank you.
I'm a big fan of Gabe. He's the best. Who doesn't love Gabe?
He talks a lot. He's a big talker. He's a big talker. I think he might be brown. People say he's un-American. But
people are saying the only reason Tookie is even on the podcast is because it's his channel. He doesn't add anything. People say it, not me, but people
pointed out that his real name is David Herod, and
I call him Tookie.
I call him Tookie. All his friends call him Tookie. I hear. He's a fantastic guy, the best.
Shout out to Tookie.
Yes, shout out to Dave and Gabe. All right. where am I? All right. The evening of April 19th, during ABC's show Nightline, Ted Koppel cited the Washington Post, who cited a source close to the investigation, who cited an anonymous source within the FBI, who had reported that at least 8 groups, 7 of them Middle Eastern, had claimed responsibility for the bombing. I wonder if there's like a
hotline.
I wonder if there's just like this sort of like NGO runaround for terrorist organizations in the Mideast, right? Because they're getting funded by the CIA and Iran, and
Allegedly, I don't want to get shot in the middle of the night.
Allegedly, people say, but they're getting funded by all of these groups, and they want to know that they're getting something for their money, right? So they're like, oh, can we take credit? Can we say that was us? Can we say we did that? Like,
guys, we have a quota of 5 bombings a year. Otherwise, they're going to cut our funding.
I mean, think about it. The last major terrorist attack before this in the U.S. was the World Trade Center bombing in 1993. That's a 2-year gap. Like, people are looking at next year's numbers and they're like, are we gonna get funded if we don't get a W in the column?
Well, and luckily the ATF was out that day to have a meeting about the next year's budget. They couldn't do it in their own conference room because it was too small. So they all took the day. They went to the park.
Too full of children's toys
and C4.
Yes.
Allegedly.
Let's see. Hold on. Koppel opined, if those who committed today's atrocity are, as some officials are inclined to believe, part of a fundamentalist Islamic terrorist group, then they see themselves as part of an army, sowing panic in the belly of the great Satan. From their point of view, today's bombing must seem a huge success. Oklahoma State Rep and former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Dave McCurdy, announced on CBS News that there was a very clear evidence of the involvement of fundamentalist Islamic terrorist groups. ATF Director John McGaugh informed CNN, anytime you have this kind of damage, this kind of explosion, you have to look for Middle Eastern terrorists first. Ooh, you get canceled today. New York's Newsday writer Jeff Kamen referred to the swarthy suspects, expressed his desire to shoot them now before they get us. Amazing.
We used to be a proper country.
We used to be a real country. Base 90s. For some, the threat of murderous Middle Easterners seemed a likely one, given recent terrorist attacks such as the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center in Manhattan. Look, I guess I can never just provide context because Wendy Painting, has that shit on lock, right? Like, why did I even mention it? Who cares?
Yeah, no, she's just going to mention it 2 sentences from now and then probably devote a whole chapter to it.
Right.
This is a very well-researched book, folks.
In fact, the OKC bombing followed a series of ongoing attacks against U.S. targets within the Middle East in the 80s and early 90s that positioned the subject of terrorism and terrorists as a central focal point within public discourse, despite the vague definitions of these terms. On trial the very same day that the Oklahoma City bombing occurred was Razmi Youssef, mastermind of the 1993 World Trade Center plot, also involved in a Ryder truck bomb.
Oh, they're definitely all like they can't survive 2 hits.
Yeah, poor Ryder.
Or R.I.P. Ryder.
Yeah, like I'm sure that there's just like a whole page in their rental agreement that's just like, really, you're not going to blow anyone up with this truck, right? Like, guys, you're not, right? Please. We just want to rent people trucks and have them
our slogan returned. We'll rent to anyone wasn't such a good idea.
All right. This, along with previous attacks, influenced the immediate public acceptance of the initial Middle Eastern OKC bombing story. The public more readily believes explanations of terrorist incidents when they conform to existing cultural myths, and so on April 19th, 1995, the prevailing American terrorist myth was cast barbaric Middle Easterners as the most likely culprit. The stereotypical Arab terrorist featured on nightly news reports paralleled blockbuster Hollywood movies that depicted Arab jihadists from any number of foreign countries. Films such as The Delta Force, 1986, Terror Squad, 1987, and Navy SEALs, 1990, coming soon to Drive Time Movie Night.
Wait, seriously, you're going to do Navy SEAls?
No. Terror Squad, we might, though. Terror Squad, we
might.
Racially charged images of swarthy, dirty, slimy, despicable, and demonic Middle Eastern fanatics. These popular culture villains sported unkempt beards and headdresses, and wielded bombs and guns for vague political motives explained simply in terms of their unprovoked irrational hatred of Americans, just like in real life.
Yeah, so even Back to the Future.
Oh yeah,
half the plot happens because Doc tells these Libyan guys that he's going to build them a bomb.
It's the Libyans. They found me. I don't know how, but they found me. Yeah, because he tells Libyans that he's going to build a nuke, and he swindles them for their plutonium for his time machine. Yeah, exactly. It's the inciting incident, right? There wouldn't have been an issue.
And then they drive by, shoot him in the mystery machine.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. They had a real
Raggy? We missed.
Rollahu Rockbar. Let's see. These
Scrappy was the driver.
Oh God, Scrappy's clearly the Scrappy would do a terrorism.
Scrappy did OKC.
He did for sure. That's what we get to after 750 pages. It was Scrappy Doo.
Where was Scrappy Doo in 1995?
The plausibility of the theatrics scene, or the degree to which they accurately reflected real-world events, were of little concern to eager viewers of the new terrorist action movie genre. Rather, commanding their attention were the violent aesthetics of the film, the glorious explosion, and the myriad ways of depicting death and destruction, all providing a window to observe and, by proxy, engage in what film studies scholar Stephen Price termed the theater of mass destruction. Would you buy tickets to the theater of mass destruction?
Yes,
because I would.
Even if it was like an infinite jest sort of, you're going to die here. One-way ticket. I'd probably go and see
Pancreatic cancer. I guess I finally get to see what's happening at the theater of mass destruction. Thus, for the American public, the initial Middle Eastern terrorist scenario of the OKC bombing was a familiar one that fit into prevailing cultural myths about terrorism and terrorists. As newer information emerged in the days following the bombing, the whodunit, the narrative, underwent radical revisions, and newer templates of terrorism appeared, all of which coalesced fact, fiction, rumor, and myth with different demonized outsider villains.
You should definitely change Drive Time Movie Night to Theater of Mass Destruction.
Man, maybe we'll
talk to Mike.
I'll talk to Mike, and we'll see. Theater of Mass Destruction is real good though.
Maybe I'll change this podcast to.
We'll change this one
to Library of Mass Destruction.
Library. Oh man, that's pretty good. That's pretty good,
folks. Forget that original crappy title that I gave the show. We are now the Library of Mass Destruction.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's so good. Co-signed. Will never disavow. Let's see. Avowed even. The usual suspects. As media outlets told the story of Middle Eastern terrorists, a second narrative was simultaneously forming. This emergent story was one also based on observations of OKC witnesses who began talking, first among themselves and soon to the media, about the existence of known bomb threats to the Murrah up to 2 weeks before April 19th, one of which had resulted in the evacuation of the building on April 18th. The OKC Fire Department's chief claimed that his office had received a call from the FBI weeks prior to the bombing, alerting them to a possible threat, and based on this call, there had been a state of heightened security, not just at the Murrah, but covering the entire federal complex in downtown OKC on the morning of the 19th.
Yeah, they could definitely feel that presence.
In addition, A number of people said that the early hours of April 19th, they observed members of the OKC sheriff, an ATF bomb squad truck, and a canine search unit near the Murrah. These reports led to the construction of a story about the government's foreknowledge of the attack. OKC PD Sergeant Don Browning recounted the strange occurrence he witnessed when he arrived at work early on the morning of April 19th before the explosion. Browning said, "The OKCPD horse patrol was gearing up that morning, all loaded and dressed up. We were told we were being sent out for crowd control. They were en route to downtown when the bomb went off. Why? Why crowd control? There was nothing going on in downtown. The Arts Fest had not started. They only ever got called out for an event. They don't just do willy-nilly crowd control. There was nothing to indicate that the horse patrol was needed. There was something not quite kosher with all this. Later, I was told by a secretary in the ATF office that the building had been searched for bombs late the night before on the 18th.
Imagine like somebody in the ATF going, "Oh, the 18th," and then just doing like a head slap, like
Oh, yeah.
Oopsie.
Everyone in the squad simultaneously head slaps. It's like,
No, you gotta like. There's that saying, "Never attribute to malice, which can be easily attributed
attributed.
to incompetence."
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure whoever said that was a Fed.
Oh yeah.
No, guys, they're just idiots.
No, don't
Don't
worry
look
about
over
it.
here.
Don't look over there. Yeah. The oh my god. Although, you can it can be both. That's the problem. It can be both. Like Janet Reno, who, to follow the public narrative, kind of precipitated this whole thing, right? She was both malicious and incompetent, like
Yes, and
objectively. So,
objectively the ugliest woman living.
oh my god. Is Janet Reno still alive?
I hope not.
I mean,
I don't mean that. I don't care for the woman one way or the other.
man, she so homely that they needed to make her middle name Wood so that someone would say it about her.
The chairwoman of the Homely Land Security.
No kidding.
That
She died November 7th, 2016.
so
And
just in time to see Donald Trump get elected.
amazing.
R.I.P. Janet
R.I.P.
Reno.
R.I.P. Got disappeared. Like Hillary Clinton was just like, Janet, you said the fix was in. Just choked her out right before the concession speech. All right. The FBI then introduced new plot elements and characters into the mix. The majority of accounts attribute the first concrete developments in the case to a VIN number found on the rear axle of a Ryder truck that fell from the sky after the explosion and landed
Well, what
in
was
the
it
wreckage
doing
at
in
the
the
blast
sky?
site. What was it doing in the sky?
One of those black helicopters must have dropped it.
Landed in the wreckage at the blast site. By the following afternoon, Thursday, April 20th, the FBI traced it to Elliott's Body Shop, a Ryder rental agency in Junction City, Kansas. There they learned that days before, on Saturday, April 15th, a man using the name Robert Kling had made a phone reservation for the Ryder rental truck on Monday, April 17th. Indeed, Kling arrived on the 17th as promised. The false ID he presented to the Elliott's employees listed Kling's birthday as April 19th, 1963. And coincidentally, the timestamp on the rental agreement read 4:19 p.m. That's the type of like schizo information that I love having added because it's clearly not like
Yeah, and
funny.
there's no way he could have definitely timed it. That was hey, can you just post date this for
I just really want
4:19
4:19 to
p.m.
be
You know,
seared into everyone's memory.
hey, dude, what if we made it 4:20? Whoa.
Yeah. I wonder if Elliott's Body Shop is still it's not. That's sad.
It's got a 2.5 on Google.
It's sad that it's not still open. It'd be really funny if it was.
Yeah, this is what happens in this country. The small businessman can't catch a break.
The small businessman, like this poor guy, just because they didn't check.
Well, I mean, all he did was sell Ryder trucks, and if they went out,
so true.
R.I.P. Ryder truck.
Yeah, I think they still exist.
Probably, but not. They
the owner of the
took a hit.
Probably severely diminished, but the owner of the shop, Eldon Elliott, and the 3 other employees present at the time, Kling picked up the Ryder, all said that he came in with another man who silently stood in the back of the store and smoked cigarettes as Kling conducted the transaction. Yes, during the time where you could smoke cigarettes inside in public.
Yeah, with an assumed name.
We've got to go back. FBI field agents began canvassing the Junction City area for leads and released 2 sketches based on the descriptions of the 2 newest suspects, both of whom came to be known respectively as John Doe number 1, JD1, and John Doe number 2, JD2.
It'd be funny if
the sketch of JD1, Kling, depicted a white male about 5'10" in height, weighing about 180 pounds, with a medium build, buzz cut, angular face, with a rough complexion, acne, and what appeared to be a deformed chin. JD2 was a dark-skinned man with dark hair, dark, intense eyes, square jaw, full lips, muscular neck, in his late 20s or early 30s, approximately 5'10" in height, weighing 180 pounds, with a serpent-like tattoo on his left bicep. The FBI offered a $2 million reward for information leading to their arrest. The sketches matched similar reports from eyewitnesses in and around downtown OKC. Immediately following the release of the sketches, the FBI received a slew of phone calls from people around the country who claimed to know the identities of these men. Among them was Carl LeBron, a security guard at Calspin, a defense contractor located in Buffalo, New York. On April 21st, LeBron told the FBI that JD1 looked eerily similar to a former co-worker of his named Timothy McVeigh, a racist anti-Semite who was extremely vocal about his anti-government beliefs. Based. In fact, he continued, McVeigh's rhetoric had been so startlingly hate-filled that LeBron once secretly recorded one of their conversations, a tape of which he turned over to the FBI and after the bombing. In addition, LeBron gave the FBI the name of another Calspan guard whom LeBron said he believed was John Doe too. Man, this defense contractor is just full of
seriously.
Who could have thought that this defense contractor would be full of unsavory characters?
I mean, who runs this? Eric Prince?
Meanwhile, on Friday, April 21st, as LeBron made his phone call to Buffalo FBI office, I almost said Buffalo Bill office, the FBI's canvassing in Junction City, Kansas, where Kling rented his Ryder, led them to the Dreamland Motel. The owner of the Dreamland, Lee McGowan, instantly recognized the sketch of JD1 as a recent guest who had arrived in a yellow Mercury Marquis on Friday, April 14th, registered under the name Timothy McVeigh, and on his registration form noted an Arizona license plate whose number was illegible, as well as a Decker, Michigan home address.
Can you hear me?
I cannot hear you.
How about now?
Try again. Nope.
How about
not working? Hold on. Let me make sure that my
test.
My audio is working, so I can hear other things.
Test.
Your mic is not working.
Testing.
Yeah, I mean, you're not even I'm not getting any like the little action ring around your profile pic isn't popping up.
Test. Hello.
Just drop off if you need to. Do you want to make those points?
No, I was just I don't even remember what I was going to say, so we can just keep going. We had some technical difficulties, folks. We'll try and get some creative editing so that you don't even realize we did.
Well, then why did you say that?
Just in case I get lazy and we don't.
Oh my God. All right. Meanwhile, on Friday, April 21st, as LeBron made his phone call to the Buffalo FBI office, the FBI is canvassing in Junction City, Kansas, where the No, hold on. All right. Like, cut here. And I'm just going to I'm going to start on this paragraph again because I fucked that up. So
it might be funnier if I don't cut anything.
It would be, yeah, but it'd be a lower quality product.
We're two schizophrenics on the internet. I don't think quality is what people are here for.
Okay. All right. Meanwhile, on Friday, April 21st, as LeBron made his phone call to the Buffalo FBI office, the FBI's canvassing in Junction City, Kansas, where the Kling rented his Ryder, led them to the Dreamland Motel. The owner of Dreamland, Lee McGowan, instantly recognized the sketch of JD1 as a recent guest who had arrived in a yellow Mercury Marquis on Friday, April 14th, registered under the name Timothy McVeigh. And on his registration form, noted an Arizona license plate whose number was illegible, as well as a Decker, Michigan home address. McVeigh had checked out early in the morning of Tuesday, April 18th. McGowan, her adult son, and several Dreamland guests told agents that the previous Sunday, which happened to be Easter, McVeigh parked an older model, faded yellow Ryder truck there, but by the end of the evening on Monday, April 17th, had replaced it with a newer, freshly painted model. They further recounted to the FBI agents that during his time at Dreamland, McVeigh had received visitors in his motel room. Several guests recalled having to ask McVeigh to move the earlier faded Ryder on more than one occasion, as it was blocking other parking spaces. This fucking dickhead.
I have a neighbor. Well, he's not my neighbor, but he's on my street who has this giant RV.
Yeah.
And I know the guy who lives next to him, and he's always complaining. He's like, this fucking guy, I don't get any sunlight in my yard because of this fucking monstrosity he's got parked in the front. It's RVs.
It's just permanently parked on the street in front of his house.
Not even in the street, in the narrow strip between the two properties.
Oh, interesting. I mean,
there's a few RVs that are just permanently parked on our street because we don't have an HOA. But yeah, the fucking boomer mobile is anyway.
Yeah,
I could go into a whole diatribe about how much I don't like the RV, even though you'd think I would.
I would think you would, because you're kind of a
boomer,
kind of a boomer, spiritual boomer. All right. Let's see. McGowan had placed McVeigh in room 25, which shared a wall with her office. Upon their arrival, she told agents she was certain that on April 16th, Easter Sunday, she had clearly heard at least one male voice, and possibly two, speaking to McVeigh in his room. At least 6 others, all Dreamland guests and employees, also reported seeing a man with McVeigh. They described this other man as shorter than McVeigh, standing about 5'7" and weighing about 190 pounds, with a muscular build, olive or dark complexion, a dragon tattoo, and having dark, slick-backed hair. Various Dreamland witnesses said they saw this man sitting behind the wheel of the newer Ryder, sometimes with McVeigh sitting in the passenger seat, including on the afternoon of April 17th. The Dreamland accounts were supported by Jeff Davis, a delivery person for Hunan's Chinese restaurant, who said that about 5 p.m. on Saturday, April 15th, the caller identifying himself as Bob Kling had placed an order for delivery to the Dreamland room 25. Davis insisted that if he had to say which JD sketch the man who answered the door and paid for the order resembled, it would be JD2, but stressed that in actuality, the man he encountered resembled neither sketch nor the man later identified as Timothy McVeigh. So JD3,
4, 5, 6, 10.
All-American Demon, The Devil You Know. Soon after, that's like a PlayStation 2 era video game title.
Oh, I'd play that.
I would probably play that too. But soon after the Elliots, Dreamland and LeBron. Soon after the Elliots, Dreamland and LeBron leaves. See, this is where it doesn't have an Oxford comma, but it should.
Yeah. Whoever killed the Oxford comma is an asshole.
Yeah. The FBI learned that on April 19th, a little over an hour after the explosion in OKC, and about an hour northwest of OKC, Oklahoma State Trooper Charlie Hanger observed a yellow 1977 Mercury Marquis with a missing rear license plate heading away from OKC. The driver promptly pulled over to the side of the road after Hanger signaled him to do so and identified himself to Hanger as Timothy McVeigh. Although unable to produce a bill of sale or proof of insurance for the car he was driving, McVeigh did disclose to Hanger that he was carrying a concealed and loaded 9mm Glock semi-automatic pistol, which, while registered legally in the state of New York, was nonetheless illegal in Oklahoma. Boo, Oklahoma.
So when you have stricter gun laws than New York, what the hell?
Yeah, no kidding.
The 90s was a different country, man.
No kidding. Hanger placed 27-year-old McVeigh under arrest for the traffic violations and possession of an illegal gun and booked him in the nearby jail, located in the town of Perry, where he was to await arraignment. Hanger described his initial impressions of McVeigh as a clean-cut, well-groomed, and polite young man. Local officials, employees at the jail, and inmates there described McVeigh's demeanor during his time in Perry as seemingly unconcerned and said he showed no reaction to the live, emotionally charged coverage of the bombing continuously playing in the background during his booking. During his stay at the Perry jail, as he waited to appear before the arraigning judge, McVeigh made several phone calls, unsuccessfully attempting to locate and secure a bail bondsman. Based on the LeBron and Dreamland leads, the FBI tracked McVeigh to the Perry jail on April 21st, only minutes before his scheduled arraignment and release, and contacted the Perry district attorney, requesting he stall McVeigh's arraignment. An hour after the FBI called the DA, as agents made their way to Perry, a large crowd of ambitious news crews and civilian gawkers gathered outside the small jail courthouse. Images of a shackled McVeigh in an orange jumpsuit, escorted by federal agents from the front of the Perry jailhouse to a nearby black helicopter, dun dun dun, quickly inundated the airwaves. From Perry, McVeigh was taken to nearby Tinker Air Force Base for further questioning.
And who was the questioner at Tinker Air Force Base? Jolly West.
What?
Oh, wasn't it Jolly West, the MK Ultra guy?
Oh, was it?
I think so. I think that gets cut. God. I think he talks to McVeigh several times, and then even Painting goes over this. The one psychologist that McVeigh liked was Jolly West's assistant.
Amazing.
Or like his protege.
Right. That's right. That was the connection. This sort of like random happenstance that caused him to get nipped here is interesting. Right?
This is why I always have my license and registration up to date.
Yeah, in your getaway vehicle.
Yes, all my getaway vehicles are registered properly to my several aliases.
Yeah, I mean that's how you have to do it. Seems like the guy who was trying to get away probably would have thought that part through at least, maybe not introduced himself.
Minivan.
Yeah, or not introduced himself by the name Timothy McVeigh.
It's almost like he wanted to get caught.
Yeah, maintained consistent OPSEC,
Upon first about it.
What?
I wouldn't know anything about it.
Wouldn't know anything about that. Upon first seeing McVeigh, the sizable crowd that had gathered outside the Perry jail began shouting taunts at him, calling him a creep, murderer, baby killer, and weird. I added that. McVeigh.
Did you hear what he did to that couch?
McVeigh was so brat. Reporters said seemed eerily composed and unrepentant, and his countenance similar to a mask whose powers of concealment seemed to also reveal his ruthlessness and hatred. His lack of visible reaction and 1,000-yard stare seemed to provoke and escalate the reactions of the crowd towards him. One reporter observed that McVeigh seemed to provide an obliging demon towards whom the mounting public fear and anger could be directed. What the crowd in Perry and national news viewers found most disturbing about this demon was his gaze and the look in his eyes. Thus, Americans and the world first became acquainted with Timothy James McVeigh.
If this happened today, I know for a fact there'd be like 50 comments and like TikToks like, why he kind of cute though.
He got that white boy riz. Actually, if it happened today, he'd probably have that fucking Zoomer perm. I mean, look at it. It would actually probably not look bad on his head shape.
For real
though.
He's not bussing. He's Ryder trucking.
On God.
I'm cutting that.
The media made immediate and ongoing comparisons between McVeigh and Lee Harvey Oswald. After being appointed to act as McVeigh's lead defense attorney in early May 1997, Stephen Jones also publicly compared McVeigh's Perry Perp walk to that of Oswald's, although no Jack Ruby.
They didn't have time to call in a Jack Ruby.
They didn't have time to wind up. They didn't have time to wind up a Jewish club owner,
who really, really liked Oklahoma.
Fucking loved Oklahoma. Anyway, Jones commented
people bought that. Oh, Jack Ruby, the mob connected guy. Oh, he just really liked JFK.
He just loved America. Look, man, the Jack Ruby as portrayed in Don DeLillo's Libra was
an American hero.
Was an amazing guy. I would have a lot of beers with him.
Also interviewed by Jolly West, by the way.
Right. Oh yeah. Got around.
Jolly West, just the American
secret president. All right. Let's see. Jones commented that the repeated airing of these images had created a sense of national deja vu, and said those old enough to remember saw in McVeigh the ghost of Lee Harvey Oswald. Jones later pointed out that it would have been much easier and safer to whisk McVeigh quickly and quietly out of the back of the Perry courthouse, and accused the FBI of tipping off reporters to the scheduled perp walk, during which they paraded McVeigh in front of the cameras, thereby scripting and orchestrating a major media event. Now, what sort of person would accuse the FBI of scripting and orchestrating a major event in U.S. history?
Certainly no one on this channel.
Certainly nobody here. McVeigh's race, white, nationality, American, background, a highly decorated Gulf War veteran, and clean-cut appearance starkly contrasted with the initial images of villainous Middle Easterners. A contrast accentuated...
Hey, Tim, we need you to swarth up a little.
You gotta. Can you just not shave? Oh, you got blonde facial hair. It looks like you're. It just looks like you're out of focus.
At least give him one of those curved swords.
He looks like a Shriner. A contrast accentuated even further upon the arrests of 40-year-old Terry Nichols and 26-year-old Michael Fortier. Yeah, shortly thereafter. McVeigh had listed Terry Nichols of Decker, Michigan as his next of kin during his initial booking in Perry on April 19th. On April 21, after hearing his name on the radio in connection with McVeigh and the bombing, Nichols promptly turned himself in to local authorities in Decker, Michigan, and at first denied any involvement in the bombing or knowledge of McVeigh's involvement, but soon after admitted to limited knowledge of McVeigh's plot. The FBI quickly identified Michael Fortier as a known acquaintance of McVeigh's, at whose residence in Kingman, Arizona, McVeigh occasionally resided. Fortier, upon first being questioned by the FBI, denied any involvement in, and as no material evidence existed otherwise, he was released. Within weeks, though, Fortier, under around-the-clock surveillance by both the media and FBI, changed his story and, like Nichols, admitted that he and his wife Lori had limited prior knowledge of McVeigh's plot. Why would a person do that? You would ask.
That seems like a terrible idea.
It seems like a terrible idea that will and did land him in prison.
See, if I were the known accomplice of a very bad person, I, having gotten away from the police, would leave to another place.
Or at least not admit to having any knowledge at all.
Exactly. All we talked about was the football and baseball and
other
Sydney Sweeney. Other normal things.
Her chest things.
Just normal guy stuff.
Just guy stuff.
I did not purchase that fertilizer. It's for my lawn.
Look at how terrible my lawn looks now that Timothy McVeigh has stolen my fertilizer.
Stole all of my
He stole my fertilizer. I am the victim here.
Did you ever see that spec script for the Seinfeld 9/11 episode.
Oh my god. Amazing.
So
But no.
somebody created a script of what if Seinfeld happened on 9/11, and you see Kramer. Kramer's whole subplot is that he knew Muhammad Atta, and that he stole his box cutter that he let him borrow.
Oh my god.
And then he goes down to like the victim fund or whatever, and he's like, "Yeah, I need to be
I need $5 for a box
for
cutter.
this box cutter." He's like, "I'm a victim too here,
I'm
gonna find that and I'm gonna show it to you. It's
I
one
could
of
see
the
there.
funniest
I could
things
see
I've
there
ever
being
read.
like some. I could see there being like some woman who worked in the tower that George had just started seeing, and he was really excited about.
No,
And
George is a hero.
Oh, is he?
Somebody thinks that George saved a bunch of people on 9/11, and he just becomes like stolen valor.
Oh no!
And then he sneezes by accident. And they're like, "That's not a heroic sneeze. You're not that guy."
Oh my god!
And Jerry, he's too concerned with all the dust, because all the dust that gets kicked up in the air.
He's just like trying to tape up the windows and
wearing masks. I'm gonna find it and send it to you. It's great. It's one of the better fan fiction things I've ever read.
Amazing. I'm now considering organizing a table read of that.
We should do that. We can do anything we want on this channel.
You can do whatever you anyways. Okay. Where the fuck? Okay, there we are. The three men, all white, U.S. citizens, had met while serving in the U.S. Army. Their collective profiles starkly conflicted with the existing terrorist template. This was no gang of ragtag, swarthy, wild-eyed Muslim fanatics, but patriotic white Americans and military veterans to boot. Media attention now turned towards the suspects' purported right-wing and anti-government political views, their belief in conspiracy theories, and the larger subcultural milieu that they inhabited. This semi-subterranean social realm, broadly referred to as the Patriot Movement, consisted of loosely affiliated but often ideologically similar groups and individuals who included, among others, Second Amendment advocates, paramilitary citizen militias, white supremacist separatists, pro-lifers, tax protesters, survivalists, and proponents of a range of conspiracy theories.
It'd be really funny if like there's just a bunch of people who are like, "I don't think my tip should be taxed," and they get roped into to all of this.
Look, I'm not making that much anyway. Like, you're just going to give it back to me at the end of the year. Just don't collect it anyway. Just don't collect it. It's better for my budget. Yeah, exactly.
And we also need to kick out all the Mexicans. What? I mean, based.
Yes.
But
news article. It's not even the Mexicans anymore. But news articles described how Timothy Tim, I call him, how McVeigh, Nichols, and Fortean were part of a new generation that espoused an updated variant of much older anti-Semitic beliefs about the collusion between elements within the U.S. government and the world's elite, the Illuminati, in a secret plot to establish a world government, the New World Order, and total surveillance society. The Black Helicopter crowd believed the UN troops would soon round up, disarm, and imprison U.S. citizens within concentration camps, often to be run by FEMA.
The FEMA camps.
They're going to put us in FEMA camps. Fancying themselves modern American revolutionaries, some were gearing up for a war with the government. The events at Ruby Ridge, Idaho in 1992 and Waco, Texas in 1993, as well as the passage of the Brady Bill, catalyzed both the mobilization and alliance of these disparate groups and individuals. Man, it sure seems like nothing ever happens. Crowd was taking L's all through the 90s.
Yeah, the 90s was the happening decade. And it ended in 9/11, and then nothing has ever happened since.
No happenings have occurred since 9/11.
History took a brief pause on September 11th, 2001, and nothing has happened since.
Yeah, it walked out without clocking out and hasn't come back yet.
History's halftime is what this stretch of 20-something years will be known as.
Oh God,
Imagine going to Waco like with a bunch of militia guys and just be like, nothing ever happens.
Nothing ever happens. The thing's just burning down around you. You hear children screaming, and it's like, nothing. It's this is a nothing burger.
Randy Weaver, never heard of him.
Never heard of him. Randy Weaver also wrote a book. By the way.
All right, we'll put it on the list.
Although he was the actual victim, as confirmed in U.S. court. Totally exonerated.
R.I.P. Randy Weaver.
Well, he died of old age, but yes.
I know, but still.
R.I.P. Randy Weaver.
I hope he's at peace.
Oh, yeah, hopefully. Well, I probably, I mean, I don't know if I had my kid get murdered by anyways, whatever. Prior to the bombing, the emergent movement was virtually invisible to the public at large. Very soon after, though, an increasing number of pundits, officials, and experts linked to the paranoid worldviews of this relatively homogenous mass of militant right-wing extremists to the willingness to commit violent criminal activity, and warned that while on the fringe, they represented a threatening and growing culture of conspiracy in the mainstream. News outlets now began to report on the strange opinions expressed by the racists, militias, and kooks around McVeigh, some of whom knew him. Their statements to the media echoed long-established conspiracy theory plots and introduced the beginning of what became an entire subgroup of alternate narratives in which the bomber, wittingly or otherwise, becomes an Oswaldian figure. Notorious neo-Nazi spokesperson, Aryan Nation's founder Richard Butler
His name was Dick Butt.
Dick Butt told reporters that they suspected McVeigh was a patsy, perhaps even a CIA agent, and thereby iterating an earlier version of guilty agent stories about the bombing suspect. This is the first time that she mentions one of her other she has sort of a taxonomy.
Yeah, she has four narratives, one of them being the guilty agent narrative.
There's Lone Wolf, of course.
And then there's not Lone, it's
there's Lone Wolf, there's Pack of Wolves.
Right,
which is, basically a cell of non-government involved dissidents who carried out an attack. Essentially just, say McVeigh and some other people who were like him, who he decided to not rat out. And then there's the guilty agent, which is like he did it, but he was part of the government.
The government, yeah, he's a patsy.
Yep.
He was that boy sheep dipped.
Yep, he's a patsy. Well, why don't you explain the etymology of the sheep dip?
I can explain it somewhat. I know that it's typically used by government organizations, especially in the clandestine services, as basically an agent who they say is either washed out or is intentionally scrubbed from their records, but is actually under deep cover. Think The Spy Who Came In From the Cold as a good example of that, or even Leonardo DiCaprio's character in The Departed, right? So like a deep cover agent who is unknown to everybody except maybe a few handlers.
Okay. So but why is it called a sheep dip?
I have no idea. I think she explains it later in the book. I'd be if I remember correctly, she does.
Man. Yeah, it's been a while since I read this full thing, so some of these things will come back to me. But
I think it's because it's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
So you just gotta you gotta dip back into the flock. That's what it is. That's got to be what it is. All right. On Sunday, April 23rd, a friend of McVeigh's in Michigan told reporters that McVeigh believed the government had implanted a tracking chip in his rear end so that the all-seeing eye of the government could keep an eye on him and know where he was. The same day, April 23rd, the FBI received a call from Linda Thompson, an Indianapolis attorney militia spokesperson and producer of an underground documentary, Waco, The Big Lie, which advanced a theory that the government had deliberately set the fire that killed the Branch Davidians. Theory.
So I googled real quick what sheep dipped is, and the AI overview, first result from the AI: a liquid to protect sheep.
Okay.
I don't know. I just thought it's funny because
or to protect
AI is retarded.
or season the sheep.
Yeah, no, but it's Anyway, I couldn't find a decent definition that goes into the etymology. I'm sure she has it later
on.
Lindy Thompson, by the way, also heavily featured on Coast to Coast AM for a while, or at least mentioned. I don't think I haven't heard an episode with her on.
Mentioned.
But yeah, just a brief digression into Art Bell because we're both big fans. He actually changes up the the structure of the show
following that.
Because of OKC. He rarely, if ever, has any militia or pro-militia people on. He doesn't really cover those stories as much except for the news. He goes more into the esoteric instead of the, I guess, what we call the material conspiracy.
Absolutely. He definitely gets more into like cryptids and ESP phenomena.
Yeah, he goes into like, the fun crap instead of and the stuff that is definitely implausible, let's say.
Not dangerous to believe.
Right.
Yeah. No amount of believing in skinwalkers or Bigfoot is going to.
I think that. Well, it's tough to say, but I wouldn't be surprised just because of the way he kind of was if he was either compromised or if Art Bell was a Fed.
You think really?
I mean, dude, how many times did he have fucking John Lear, the Fed of Feds, on his program?
Yeah, but it's also like pretty plausible that he just.
No, I'm not. I could be convinced. I could be convinced otherwise. I'm not married to the idea. I just think that if somebody was going to, I mean, Operation Mockingbird was a thing.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably.
He was at least. I think he was at least approached several times by federal informants and told to rein in the Overton window a bit.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that happening. I mean, also, he had an FCC license, and he would have to do certain things, of course, because of that, and he also just had a show to run. Right?
Imagine if he had just a schizo podcast on the internet. Where's the modern Art Bell? I ask you. We have all the freedom in the world, but nobody's talking about this crap.
Nobody.
Unless you're doing a parapolitics podcast.
Unless you're Alex Jones.
Well, but
poor Alex. Also he doesn't do the fun stuff.
No, he doesn't. He does the. Gotta sell supplements.
Yeah, well, you gotta keep the lights on. Alex Jones's operation is significantly larger than Art Bell's ever was. Like, to be clear, he had a lot more people working.
True, but I think that I mean his legacy is going to be, well, now, and it's funny because Art Bell hated Alex Jones
for sure. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, they did not. There have to be some episodes of Art Bell with Alex Jones on.
They're not online. I have looked. They might be found someday, but they're not anywhere that I've been able to find.
Ripperoo. All right. Let's see. Linda Thompson, Big Lie, which advanced the theory that the government had deliberately set the fire that killed the Branch Davidians. Thompson told agents that a certain Dr. Jolly West, a CIA operative who conducted mind control experiments, had implanted microchips in McVeigh and other U.S. soldiers. Thompson also relayed that these claims to the Indianapolis Star, who quoted her in their April 24th report. The public voicing of such sentiments introduced not only a new character, West, into the mix, but also stands as the first publicly told experimental wolf stories about McVeigh,
That was the one I was thinking
which
of.
is the fourth one, which is he got MK Ultra'd.
Yeah, which is my favorite and therefore the truest one.
I mean, yes, it is my favorite, but man, MK Ultra, society has never grappled with. I mean, that's how you know the media is fully captured, because all that shit got declassified and acknowledged, and like it was not a story. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's like the Panama Papers. Like, oh, we're not, you guys weren't supposed to know that, so we're just not going to talk about it.
We're just gonna act like it didn't happen. Oh, okay.
Who is Jeffrey Epstein? Why are you guys so obsessed with him?
Yeah, that guy killed himself.
That was like 6 happenings ago.
That was like,
Trump is weird.
He's weird. Look at this TikTok dance. Shut up.
Just take the jab, Normie.
That's how Jolly West gets you.
It's a vaccine.
While acts of politically motivated violence committed on American soil by U.S. citizens were by no means a new phenomenon, an emergent category of homegrown domestic terrorism increasingly occupied a central place in terrorism discourse, and the arrest of Timothy McVeigh brought forth a rhetorical coupling of conspiracy theorists and others with a newly emergent terrorist threat. In response, all manner of claim makers garnered support for a range of new policies and practices meant to combat the existence and spread of threatening ideologies and subcultures. On Monday, April 24th, 1995, President Clinton assured the public that he would expand the powers and budgets granted to counterterrorism and intelligence agencies to give enforcement. Thanks so much. To give law enforcement more effective means of investigating extremist
groups. It's weird that they had this all prepared just in case.
Strange. How long was that bill? 1,000 pages?
That 4 days? 4 days, guys?
Man, you must have had Stephen King on that.
They had 1,000 monkeys at typewriters.
Yeah. Root out and eradicate whatever larger threat the bombing might indicate. Prior to the bombing, Congress refused to pay. Funny that it was one guy. They just decided it was one guy, but they still passed that bill. You know, isn't that interesting that they still increased the government's ability to surveil and investigate, but even after they said it was a lone wolf.
Well, luckily that never happened again in the history of the U.S. government.
It never happened again.
They learned their lesson.
Prior to the bombing, Congress refused to pass a controversial anti-terrorism bill proposed by the Clinton administration. But 2 days after, on April 25th, the first draft of it passed the Senate, and a year later passed its final form with overwhelming bipartisan support. The newer version of the previously proposed legislation greatly increased the powers and budgets allotted to counterterrorism, intelligence, and law enforcement agencies, with the stated goal of more effectively investigating, monitoring, and eradication of extremist groups through the FBI's and other law enforcement agencies' use of undercover surveillance and sting operations, also known as planning it themselves. Further, the new legislation retroactively allowed prosecutors
the insider's guide to saving democracy by insert act here.
Yeah, doing whatever. Snake eats its own tail. Further, the new legislation retroactively allowed prosecutors to seek the death penalty for any suspect convicted of participation in the OKC bombing. Seems like that's not how laws usually work.
Listen, you might have committed that crime yesterday, but we didn't have everything set up to kill you for it today.
Yep. On April 23rd,
this government's so gay.
It's fantastically gay. It's on April 23rd, the FBI announced they were still searching for anywhere from 4 to 6 other unidentified conspirators. During a press conference the next day, President Clinton promised that although the number of individuals involved in the bombing of the Murrah was unknown as yet, no stone would be left unturned. All leads would be followed, and all perpetrators found and convicted. Justice would be certain, swift, and severe, and prosecutors would seek the death penalty for those found guilty. At the same press conference, Janet Reno, yay, reminded viewers
that the sex goddess Janet Reno.
Janet Wood Reno, actual middle name Wood, Wood. Why?
Because her parents hit her repeatedly with a baseball bat as a child.
Janet Reno was carved. She looks like a chainsaw sculpture from an old pine log.
Janet Reno,
and she got animated by an evil fairy, and
Janet Reno should be sitting on a lily pad, using her giant tongue to collect flies that pass by.
God, she was a mournful looking woman.
Mournful woman. I just want to have a funeral for her face.
Yeah, a tasteful funeral. McVeigh and
I wonder how many Venture Brothers references we can sneak into this.
Well, it's not sneaking anymore once you say it.
Well, I'll cut that out.
At the same press conference, Janet Reno reminded viewers that although authorities had McVeigh and Nichols in custody, the case remained open and stressed that JD2 remained at large and was considered armed and dangerous. Although the official number of suspected participants in the bombing continued to change, on May 1st, the cover of Time featured a photo of McVeigh, declaring him the face of terror. The next day, however, on May 2nd, another face of terror emerged when the FBI released a second sketch of the stocky, dark-skinned JD2, this time with a baseball cap on. The second sketch was based on numerous eyewitnesses in Oklahoma, Kansas, and Arizona who claimed to have seen McVeigh with others in the weeks, days, hours, and minutes before the explosion, as well as immediately afterwards. About a week later, on May 8, Time quoted an unnamed federal investigator who said that McVeigh and John Doe were in no way lone bombers, but rather more than likely cogs in a much larger network of extremists who had assisted in the bombing conspiracies through financing or tactical support. Then, on May 10th, the Los Angeles Times quoted unnamed investigators and authorities who relayed a working theory that John Doe 2 could be two people who had accompanied McVeigh to OKC the morning of the bombing in order to act as decoys in the hope of confusing eyewitnesses and therefore authorities later, a version of the Pack of Wolves story. The search for the John Does became the most intensive manhunt in American history at the time, with the FBI conducting over 25,000 interviews and running down 43,000 leads in an attempt to find them. Just ran those guys down. Also, Swarthoids on watch. In the process, the FBI arrested, cleared, and released several individuals, one of them live on television.
Boy, are you telling me that the media would abuse a national tragedy for ratings?
Man, I don't know if I don't know if I would ever say
you'd never
that.
see Tom Brokaw doing that, let me tell you.
You'd never see any journalist scoring easy points with whatever with the current thing.
I tell you what.
All right. Meanwhile,
let's do this.
Sorry, go ahead.
Let's do this last paragraph, and I think we'll call it a night.
All right, sounds good. Meanwhile, as the FBI sought to determine if McVeigh had acted as a leader or follower, a mastermind or just one of many foot soldiers in a much larger ring of conspirators and like-minded terrorists, media outlets speculated about McVeigh's motives. Depending on the report, McVeigh's downward spiral and violent aspirations began when he washed out of his Special Forces tryout, became disillusioned about the role that the U.S. and himself had played in the Gulf War, developed Gulf War syndrome, or after he became enraged by the militaristic and warlike tactics used against the Branch Davidians at Waco, Texas, and what he perceived as a general loss of civil liberties. Thus, McVeigh assumed the cloak of disgruntled soldier avenger.
And we'll stop it. Yeah, disgruntled soldier Avengers assemble. I cast PTSD.
Okay, so
we'll stop her there.
Yeah, we'll call it for now, and
I'll put this out, and we'll see if this catches on.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's do a little sign out.
Yeah, definitely. So for all you good people out there who enjoy this kind of crap like Cap and I do, we're gonna try and make this a regular thing. Probably not every week, just because of our schedules, but as often as we can. Cap, where can people find you and your schizo ramblings?
You can find me every Wednesday on Drive Time Movie Night, where I and my co-host Mike of Pole will watch a movie, generally completely blind, with a guest, and provide color commentary. You can see that on X, Rumble, and Odyssey, and you can also find me at Tookie's Mag with my co-hosts Gabe and David, where
AKA Tookie.
aka Mr. Tookie, who and we read fiction from this thing of ours, the E-Right dissident and independent publishers.
As for me, doubledealer.substack.com for all of Cannon Fodder podcast, as well as Double Dealer podcasts. I have 2 books out. You could buy a Double Dealer magazine. Not sure where I'm going to put this. If I'm going to put it on Double Dealer, if I'm going to put it on my own thing, but to be determined.
TBD.
The truth is out there. I don't know. I'm playing around with sign outs. I don't know.
I don't know.
Is out there.
Learn stuff the glowies don't want you to know.
This has been the Library of Mass Destruction. Goodbye.
Goodbye.